بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين والصلوات الله وسلامه على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك يا رب الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Right, okay, so where did we get to last week? Bring up the text. Excellent. Fixed? Khalas? Why is this mouse back here? Come forward. Yeah. Come forward. These are polynomials. Where did we get to, Shaz? What's the text? Is the old one a new one or what? On the portal, it's got the old one or new one?
No, on the live page, it's a new one. On the resources page, was it?
So yeah, so if anyone who's on the portal, you still, for some reason, there's some technical glitch there. You've got the old text.
In the resources section.
Oh, not on the live page.
Live page is not.
Live page is fine. Cheers. So something which I noticed that actually.
You missed out.
Yeah, there's two things. Obviously, I was you're still taking my medicine when I was doing a translation here. I missed out. What did I miss? Scabies.
No.
Yes. So the section that we did last week was garments made of silk or that which the majority of it appears to be from silk are also impermissible for men except in the following cases. So silk is haram except in the following cases. If the amount of silk and non-silk is equal, so if it's 50-50, then the thing becomes permissible. If there is a necessity of some sort for itching, where was the part I missed? Before, after that, yeah? Aywa. Yeah. For itching, for medical conditions, وَلِلضَّرُورَةِ أَوْ حِكَّةٍ أَوْ مَرَضٍ أَوْ قَمْلٍ. And I forgot to translate أو قمل. So that should say for lice, yeah, and then أو حرب أو جرب, and حرب is either going to be translated as war or it's going to be translated as jarab. You've taken me off the text, Shaz. Or jarab, which would be scabies, okay, specifically. And of course, we mentioned that we have companions who had that concession, and then. What else did I carry on with that? Oh, hashwan, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, stuffing.
For user stuffing.
Yeah.
And then أو كان عملا أربع أصابع فما دون, or using embroidery, which is 4 finger widths or less.
That's what we got to.
That's what we got to, yeah. Khalas, good. Are you sure? Did I not just finish? Yeah, I just kind of yeah. I mean, we can do that anyway. أو رقاء أو لبنة جيب وسجف فراء ويكره المعصفر والمزعفر للرجال. So for patches and for bordering, okay, and I'll just quickly finish that off, and then this sentence which we're going to cover today, it is disliked to wear يكره المعصفر والمزعفر للرجال. And I've written, for some reason, I have no idea why, that it is disliked to wear yellow and saffron dyed garments, and that's absolutely incorrect. It is asfar and saffron dyed garments. Okay, and I'm going to so the correct translation should read: it is disliked to wear garments dyed in saffron and by saf flower, SAFF flower, saf flower. I don't know if in English you say it as a single word, safflower, but I think it's safflower, but it's a single word, okay? So it is disliked to wear garments dyed in saffron or by safflower, and that's what we're going to be covering today. So it's not yellow at all. All right, I don't know why I wrote that, okay? But the yellow is going to come as part of the explanation. Maybe it's because I was reading the explanation and then I translated it as yellow when I don't know why. Okay, right. So let's just quickly finish off the issue of silk then. So we've covered all the exemptions, and the one that we're at now is when this silk is clearly a minimal part of the garment and so on, then it is permissible. If there's like a medical need for it because of its softness, etc., because of its gentleness, it is permissible. And now we've got to the stage where it can even be used when it's used as an extra piece of material to patch up something which is torn, or overlaying. I think I said this. Like people, they have a shirt which is made of cotton, but then they put the silk in there because that's obviously what's touching the thingy. So that's the kind of thing which is permissible. I don't know whether people put it anywhere else. Do they put it there as well? Is it just the edges that rub? Maybe. Okay. But anyway, that's a good example. All right. If you're wearing a shirt which is going to rub all the time, this is obviously more so back in the day where cloth was far more rougher. In our time now, the cloth is generally soft, right? So it's not really a problem. But if a person wanted to lace his or her his clothes like that, then that's something permissible. Or sujuf al-fira, basically borders. Now borders, I don't know, what's a border?
The ends of something.
Yeah, but I'm saying, Yani, why would anyone do that for? Because I get a woman doing it because they do lace and things, right?
You do it to lengthen the length as well sometimes.
Right. So that's also good, yeah. If you're wanting to increase the length of your clothes for a male, would he do that? Yeah, I mean, I guess. Again, the point is that it's a minimal, it's an extension, it's not the asl, it's the fara. It's the branch, it's not the primary, so it's a secondary matter. So these are permissible kind of applications. Okay? Any questions on the matter of silk? Because we need to then move on from that completely. Yeah? You generally get the idea. It's an effeminate clothing, an effeminate cloth, and it should be avoided as much as possible. Okay? People should recognize that even in the issue of whether they think their illah is the Sharia reason for prohibition is that or is something else, it doesn't matter. I think people need to be very careful about these things. Okay, very, very careful. And I guess, as you're going to see, this little subchapter is very much linked to culture and time and so on, especially the next point that we're going to be covering. But I want you to know that we are definitely at a very effeminate time. That's not to say that hasn't existed historically. Historically, there have also been times where, people have been very effeminate and but now it's obviously at an epidemic kind of level. It's something that you should be wary of. And what I want to say is that now that there are statements that are now politically incorrect, that people are not saying so much because of how it can be misconstrued. So for example, when I was young, to say to someone, man up, okay, would never have been a problem. Now to say to someone, man up, is now seen as offensive to women, is seen offensive to be honest, you're always risking offending someone, by whatever you say. And so therefore, obviously, people are trying to be careful. And so there are some phrases, and language is very important. Language is very important. If there is a certain level there's a certain vocabulary and a certain language which is being spoken and being said by everyone, people go along with that kind of, that mindset that it creates. Okay, generally, if there's a tough kind of talk which is going on, people are tough, right? You notice this every day. Psychologically, people, it's not that we are more psychologically weak now than ever before, but the reality is that we are all affected. Psychologically, we are affected. Mood is very important. The whole point that we mentioned about wearing silk in battle, right? The argument for it is that it breaks the what's the word? What did we say? The what? The morale, exactly. It affects the morale. Today you'd think, what the heck's going on, right? But back then you saw a guy, descending into battle wearing his best, silk best. You'd think, what? This guy's here for war. There's going to be blood and guts and whatever, whatnot. He's basically making a statement. You're not even going to get close to me. I'm not even going to break a sweat. So much so that I'm bringing my year's, value of silk on my back. It's not going to get touched. So you're breaking the other guy's morale. So, language matters, words matter. These kind of subtext things are going on. What's interesting, again, obviously, if you're into politics, you get this. If you don't, then you should know. The Labour Conservative battle at the moment, okay. Theresa May is super confident when she called this general election. She wants to, put a nail in the coffin of Labour and particularly Jeremy Corbyn. But there was always a risk. There was always a risk that the public would like Jeremy Corbyn, which is why she has refused to do a televised debate, because there's always that chance that the people will connect with him. Now, but it's only a risk, meaning that they're very confident that the people are not going to vote for someone who has as many problems as he does. Okay, populist problems I'm talking about. Now, his campaign has to overturn that. So it has to release language and sound bites and certain banners and create an image and create a language in the hearts and minds of the people who are watching to know a few things. Number one, the most important of them is what? What do you think? What do you think?
He's a capable leader.
The people?
People think that he's a capable leader.
Absolutely. That this is something which is not not the joke that the Conservatives are making out to be. That this is real. This could happen. And what's interesting is that when they launched the manifesto yesterday, yeah. I can't remember the name. Is it the name of the union leader? What's his name? McCluskey. Was it him? I think it was the other guy. There's two. There's Unite and there's the other one, right? Anyway, the point is one of the most important people when it comes to the working classes, meaning people will follow him because unions will follow this leader. I think it was that McCluskey chap. But anyway, the point is he's very important. He's a public figure, and what he says is very important. So 1 hour after the manifesto, when people's reaction is being gauged, he came out and he said, what did he say? He's not going to win? It's unlikely he's going to win?
No, before the manifesto he said
It wasn't before. That's the whole point. It was after. But it doesn't matter before or after. But what did he say? He's not going to win?
unlikely.
Unlikely to win, yeah? A Labour victory will be unlikely. Okay? This was crisis moment for Labour. You know that as soon as that guy came off the TV, the entire Labour team have been on that guy, right? And telling him that, listen, whatever you believe, you're free to believe this, that, whatever, we can't. But you have got to go and re-say that again, right? And you cannot, even if you believe that, we can't have you saying that. So the same guy reverses his statement today. This morning, he does another interview, and I think he says, this time, I think there's a good chance of Corbyn.
It'd be difficult media against them, all kind of thing. But yeah, not quite full version.
Yeah, what did he say? What was his words?
I think it was something like it's going to be difficult for them.
Optimistic Labour can win.
Yeah,
That's his
very different to what he said yesterday.
Now
That's
full
that.
optimism.
That's the point. The point was the change between 24 hours. Why was there a change? Because the more you get out there that someone is not going to be likely to win, everyone's then affected. This is not a war, but then you don't bother trying to vote for him. You think it's a wasted vote. And that's exactly what the Conservative wants. That's exactly what Labour don't want. They want people to keep on believing, because the more that people believe, then eventually everyone else will just say, well, this person is going to win, and then it just becomes infectious. And people... So the image which is created by words is very important. It genuinely affects people. This is not a fight, not a war. A guy said that I don't think he's going to win. So what's so important about saying that? However, Labour have seen it as such a huge statement, how it affects people's mindsets and culture and mentality, that they had to get it changed. Okay? Again, this is a modern political version of another point that we're saying, that there are certain realities that we are unable to say, especially as conservative Muslims, about our religion, that make us susceptible to secular ideas and the watering down of our religion. That's the point I want to come across. If you accept that this theory works and you believe that language is important, then you need to know, therefore, that the lack of religious language in the media or out there in the public is affecting Muslim minds, especially Muslim men. Especially Muslim men. And they are becoming more effeminate, even though they would never admit that, and there will soon become a time where that becomes quite normal as well. Alright? And so there are little things along the way that if they happen and they push a person further and further, it's going to happen. In today's BBC, there was another article about a particular Pakistani who was in Saudi, and he was trans. Either no one knows. That was the whole point of the article, talking whether he was transsex, actually transgender, whether he was hermaphrodite actual, or whether he was just a cross-dresser. Okay, and we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. This is definitely increasing. So anyway, you need to be aware that these things are important, and our inability to be able to articulate this openly and proudly, like for me to be able to put this on Facebook or give a lecture about it on an open platform, means that many people don't hear what we're talking about. And when they don't hear this message, and you can't have this said from a minbar or whatever, then people start to get a different understanding. You have to understand that the education of our children in private has now become more important than ever in history. And the old saying that it takes a village to raise a child, okay, not only was that always true and is true now, but the problem is that it can't work now because you can't trust the village to raise the child. All right? So there's two issues here. The reason they would say it takes a village to raise a child is because there are so many different roles that the different people are playing. There's the shopkeeper who does his part, and there's the experienced guy who's sitting outside, on the corner doing nothing all day, and he does his part. And there are other people and the confidence, and there's various skills that are picked up. So that's the import of that message. However, we have a modern reality, which is that not only are we missing that wide, varied education and tarbiyah, but we can't even risk, even if we had that opportunity to go and put the child out. They're getting such a mixed message from people, right? Even if we had that luxury of different resources to go and teach a child, you'd be scared and you'd be worried, because outside in public, people are not using that language either. So that just goes and emphasizes that the parent now is having to do such a difficult, detailed, and intense job in correcting and almost creating the mindset and then preserving it. All of that, which is only going to lead to cult think and a closed mindset, which is then therefore going to be criticized by, of course, the wider people for seeing a person who is having to put up too much of a defense against wider culture. And they'll see that lack of integration and interaction, and they will put more pressure upon you as a parent and upon the child, to what's going on. You're making these decisions for your child, etc., etc. So like I said, these things need to be taken seriously. I don't want to be the dramatic one and say, this is so important. But I genuinely believe that today, if you understood what I said properly, you'll understand that you wouldn't take a risk with silk, not even in parts and whatever, not even in dressings and whatever. Getting used to that and making men effeminate and soft and so on and so forth is a major issue, especially in the West. They don't. It's a society where there's no war, there's no fighting, there's no military conscription, there's little kind of physicality. Fighting itself is now seen as or wrestling is not promoted in a school environment or in a positive way, etc. People are becoming weak, etc., etc. Anyway, think about that. Yes.
So hasn't the debate in today's time moved on from the nature of the garment, the cloth? So, for example, there's an article a few days ago about a London private school which is proposing introducing gender neutral school uniform.
Yeah.
So boys can wear skirts, girls can wear trousers, kind of
Yep.
thing. And this is linked into the old children coming out as being non-binary,
Yep.
transgender, all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
So hasn't the debate moved on to a different level now?
Oh, surely what you just said only emphasizes just how important it is to control the things that we can control, right? Because when people have lost their minds to this level, okay, people like hate on Piers Morgan, right? But the reality is that we are not America. In America, they deal with this one time. They've got that stupidity, but they've got the people to smack down every day. You know what I'm saying? So in America, the Republicans and the religious right and the conservative Christians, they're slapping down all this democratic nonsense, the liberal nonsense, or whatever, whatnot. Yeah. So for every New York, there's a Texas, and for every Los Angeles, there's there's whatever. So
Even we heard alcohol is forbidden in one town in America. Remember?
Oh yeah, Sheikh Walid was telling us that Texas has more Sharia law than most Muslim countries will ever dream of. Adultery is impermissible, you can be punished, and alcohol not allowed, and all this kind of crazy behavior. You'd think, what's happening? So in the UK we don't have that. We are a liberal democracy where there's a very, very weak religious lobby, very, very weak, and so therefore what you're dependent on are those people like Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan is perfect as an example. He is old school right wing without being racist outright as such. Yep, and even that could be argued, but he's not like a xenophobe, Islamophobe per se. He is definitely a religious, right kind of character that is in the public arena where he shouldn't be. But because he has a certain public appeal, he maintains his position, he's holding on to it. Okay, look at the guy who gets it wrong, Kelvin MacKenzie, for example. He tries to be that Piers Morgan figure, but he's just an idiot. Yep. And so, but don't get it, don't misunderstand the situation. He has huge populist support. The Sun readership were behind him fully. The Sun getting rid of Kelvin MacKenzie was not because of their readership, it's because of legislation, because they don't want to be brought up in front of the government again and whatnot. So I'm saying, you look at Piers Morgan last week or two, he's gone full out against all this transgender bakwas. Yep. And you'll see that honestly, on his show, his co-presenters are like, flipping flapping about pathetic, liberal kind of nonsense. And he's like, you shut up and you shut up. This is stupidity. I'm going to say it. I don't care what you think. I don't care what anyone else thinks. And he's inviting all people on. They're shouting each other, smacking each other down. And he's always been like that. Okay. He always calls out stupidity like that. Now that voice is absent, okay, in this country. And as it dies away in the name of political correctness, as it continues to die, you'll find that our mindset is going to become even weaker. So obviously, when we got schools that are doing something so stupid as we're going to introduce a gender-neutral skirt, then it goes even more to emphasize how the responsibility is now higher on parents to alternative educational establishments, keeping children away from certain schools, having to make it the alternative, maybe being forced to allow such as something, maybe who knows what will happen tomorrow and all the law might change, okay? Then it's all going to go back down to what you have at home. Okay, anyway, any questions on this? Okay, let's move on then. ويكره المعصفر والمزعفر للرجال, and it is disliked or detested, okay, but we'll just use the word disliked, for clothes for men which have been dyed, and it's called mu'asfar and muza'far, which is that which has been dyed by saffron and the safflower. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a second, right? Muza'far huwa al-masbugh bi za'faran. It is that which has been dyed with saffron. And mu'asfar huwa al-masbugh bil usfar. Okay, and the mu'asfar is that cloth or clothes which have been dyed with the safflower. The safflower. The safflower is a flower which grows in very hot climates, and its chemical is carthamine. All right, and carthamine is a red-yellow substance which even until today is used in dyeing. Okay, it's used more in food dyeing than it is, as clothes, but traditionally it was always, and you can check it out yourself, it's on screen as well. And the truth of the matter is that it's used very little in commercial clothes in our modern time. Okay, but this is important because its color is a reddish, yellow, orangish kind of color. Kathamine itself. Okay, its flower differs between orange, yellow, and red, but the color that is produced for dyeing is that. Now, saffron is orange color, all right, or golden yellow, whatever you want to kind of call it. Yep. But it's basically, I mean, someone who wears saffron will be insulted if you call it orange, and they'll be insulted if you call it yellow. But it's basically orange and yellow mixed. Yeah, it's some kind of airy fairy kind of color. All right. And this needs some discussion. But before we talk about that, let's discuss what the Hanbalis meant by وَيُكْرَهُ الْمُعَصْفَرُ وَالْمُزَعْفَرُ. Yani makruh how? What kind of karaha? Karaha means disliked, yes? And we've said before that there are two types of karaha, okay? According to the usuliyin, the people of usul. And this was first established by the Hanafi school when it comes to scholarship, and then it was nicked by the Shafi'is, and then the Hanbalis then developed it afterwards as well. And they called that makruh tanzihi and makruh tahrimi. And what does that refer to? It refers that if we call something to be disliked, then it means, but what is the definition of makruh? When you say across the board, what does makruh mean? Yeah, what does it mean? What's the definition? What's the definition? Yani, what does dislike mean? In the Sharia, I mean. If you do it, you will not get punished for it. But if you avoid it, you will get reward. Okay, that's the definition of makruh. Okay. However, the Hanafis, they are the ones that introduced a further definition or a further kind of categorization, and they said that what you just said there is makruh tahrimi. Makruh tahrimi. As for makruh tanzihi, then it is a lesser form of that. It's a lesser form of that. Okay? And it's almost to kind of say that when they, when something can't be haram, then it can't be haram. So people generally throw the makruh phrase at it. But let's say that makruh is too harsh, too much of a legal kind of connotation to it. So then the idea is that let's lessen it a bit further, and that's why we get makruh tanzihi, makruh to the extent that we're trying to encourage people to not go near it, and makruh tahrimi, meaning that which is to the level of prohibition itself. Okay, so makruh tanzihi needs to be seen as the lesser form. That's important, okay, for us, number one, to define that. Number two, here's something which is important. Shaykh Uthaymeen says, وَيَجِبُ أَن نَعْلَمَ أَنَّ الْفُقَهَاءَ الْمُتَأَخِّرِينَ رَحِمَهُمُ اللَّهِ إِذَا قَالُوا يُكْرَهُ فَالْمُرَادُ كِرَاهَةَ التَّنْزِيحِ وَلَا يَقْصِدُونَ بِذَلِكَ كِرَاهَةَ التَّحْرِيمِ. Okay, that when the fuqaha, when the legal jurists, they mention something is disliked. And let me ask you a quick question. When you say the word fuqaha, jurists, do you think you're referring to modern scholars or earlier scholars when you use the word fuqaha? I mean, I don't mean in terms of 2017 versus whatever. I'm talking about in terms of early scholars and later scholars.
And would the scholar be talking about his time at that time?
So obvious, if we were talking specifically about a particular, but I'm talking just generally when you use the word, for example, if I use the word salaf, are we talking about the later scholars or the earlier scholars? Earlier. And the word the khalaf is the later scholars. Okay. So if I use the word fuqaha, all right, generally, what is it understood to be? It's later. And it's important, okay? Obviously, there are very early fuqaha. Some of the companions are fuqaha. I mean, so don't read too much into what I'm saying, but I'm just saying that when you hear the word fuqaha, there's an implication in that statement that the fuqaha are the ones that have codified the religion after it being uncoded. Does that make sense? That's what you have to always be aware. When you hear the words the fuqaha have said, then you need to be considering that this is referring not to the very, very early first generations, because then you're talking about definitions and categories and genres and classifications and so on. And that was not what the early scholars used to do. The Tabi'een, the Salaf, the early Muhaddithin, they didn't get involved in all this kind of complicated, stuff. They used to take the deen very easy and call it as they see it, and that's it. But the fuqaha afterwards, they had to produce fiqh as a teachable kind of legacy for the masses. So it had to be easily studied and learned and understood, and to do that they had to break it down into a system. Okay, and so that's why they have these phrases like makruh, makruh tanzih, makruh tahrim, etc., etc. Shaykh Uthaymeen says that when the fuqaha al-mutaakhirin, okay, he's indicating there can be earlier ones, but because when the fuqaha would say the word makruh, then they are almost always indicating by that which is not haram, that which is disliked. Whereas makruh tahrimi, which is effectively haram, okay, just so that you understand, makruh tahrimi is effectively haram. The only reason, I don't want to complicate things now because we do things in a logical way, but if I said to you that the Prophet ﷺ has forbidden this, and then you go and do it, right, you have done a haram. You wouldn't say you've done a makruh action. Correct? Yeah. The Hanafis, they said, what if that hadith has some issues? For example, it's authentic, but it's only been narrated by one companion in one way. It's a hadith ahad. So for example, it has 3 different versions, but all of them are it's a hadith ahad. We don't want to go into it. We've covered that before. Go back and look at that section. So if the source is speculative according to the Hanafis, because that's disputed in its first place whether there's such a speculative source as an authentic hadith. So what did they now say? They say, well, we're not going to say that this person has done haram, but he's done something which is makruh tahrimi. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason, because let's say that person turned around and then after he did that haram action, he said that this is allowed. This is allowed for me to do. If a person doesn't pray and then turns around and says that it's allowed to not pray, he's then committed kufr. Okay? Whereas if a person was to turn around and say that something which is makruh tahrimi, okay, that's allowed, he wouldn't become a kafir because of it. Why? Because the idea would be that he has denied something which was not established via a certain source in the first place. Does that make sense? Okay? We have covered this before, twice actually, but just as a reminder, that's something you need to know. So, makruh tahrimi effectively is haram. Okay? Now, why did Shaykh Uthaymeen make this point? Because whenever the early scholars and the Salaf and the Muhaddithin and many of the companions, whenever they used to use the word makruh, it is, or nakrah, this, or we have karaha from this, it was indicating it is haram. It was indicating it was haram. They used to interchange, and we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Alright? Now, these phrases, as I said, it's important to know when a word is used, who is saying it and what time they're saying it. When Imam Ahmad, for example, he used to say, "Ana akrah," this, I have karaha for this, it would more often than not mean something which is impermissible, as opposed to, you know what I'm trying to say? So the earlier scholars, they do not consider, they like to use the word karaha more to mean haram. The later scholars, when they use the word karaha, it means karaha, I mean they dislike it. Is that clear, everybody? So I start from the beginning again, that whatever the ruling is going to turn out to be on this issue, whatever our class position is going to be with clothes which are dyed with safflower or saffron, then according to the Hanbalis, it is merely, quote unquote, disliked. It is not haram according to the Hanabila. Just so that you know, by the way, according to the Hanafi school and to the Maliki school and to the majority of scholars, in actual fact, it is permissible to wear clothes that are dyed with these colors. You will ask why. So let's look at that discussion. First of all, the Prophet ﷺ رأى على عبد الله بن عمر ابن العاص ثوبين معصفرين فنهاه أن يلبسهما وقال إن هذه من ثياب الكفار فلا تلبسها فنهاه وعلل. The Prophet ﷺ, when he saw on Abdullah ibn Amr al-As, he saw 2 garments which were dyed with the safflower, okay, so that reddish yellowish kind of mix. Then he prohibited him from wearing them, and he said that these are from the clothes of the disbelievers, so do not wear them. Do not wear them. This hadith has been narrated in Sahih Muslim, hadith number 2077. Okay? If we were to just rule by this hadith, do you not agree that the Hanbali position of saying makruh tanzihi yani is a problem? Yeah, because it's very clear he wore these clothes and the Prophet ﷺ yani prohibited from it. So then why are we saying that it is disliked when he prohibited, right? And that's what Shaykh Uthaymeen says. He says, because this hadith, لأن هذا الحديث يقتضي أنه حرام. This hadith yani indicates that something is absolutely haram, not yani something which is just disliked, or something which is permissible, whatever. And Shaykh Uthaymeen says, وَهَذَا هُوَ الْقَوْلُ الصَّحِيحِ. And he goes, that is the correct position. Shaykh Uthaymeen says, أن لبس المعصفر حرام على الرجل والمزعفر مثله لأن اللون واحد أو متقارب. يعني he said that, and that's the correct position. He goes, I don't know why the Hanbalis, they considered this to be something which is makruh, because the hadith is very, very clear on it. And so therefore, to wear a clothes which have been dyed with with the mu'asfar or muza'far, saffron or safflower, it is impermissible. Okay? And the Shaykh says, and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that this is from the clothes of the non-Muslims. So it's not possible that we say that, okay, well, this is just disliked, because the Prophet ﷺ has made it from the clothes of the non-Muslims. He has made it from the clothes of the non-Muslims. It's not possible for you to say, well, that doesn't mean it's haram. He then says, however, it has also been narrated that the Messenger ﷺ used to wear a hullatul hamra. That's narrated in Bukhari. It's a very famous hadith. And the Bara ibn Azib radiallahu anhu, he said that كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مربوعا وقد رأيته في حلة حمراء ما رأيت شيئا أحسن منه. Okay, in the hadith of Bukhari, which is narrated 5848, he said that I saw the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم wearing this hulla, and it was red, and I have never ever seen anything more beautiful than it. Okay, so here's a problem. Shaykh Uthaymeen is identifying a problem here. He's saying, look, this narration indicates that the Prophet ﷺ himself wore red, right? And I've already mentioned Shaykh Uthaymeen saying that the other hadith indicates it's haram, because he said that he's prohibited from dyeing the clothes with a red dye, and yet he's wearing a red suit. So how do we understand this? First of all, you need to know a couple of things. A hulla is a Yemeni garment, okay, which is like a shawl or like a top. But according to Ibn Qayyim, it is a striped top, not a straightforward, just one single color. So that's the first thing that you need to know. The second thing is there is a discussion amongst the scholars on whether this hulla itself that the Prophet ﷺ was wearing, regardless of whether you believe it was striped or not, was it a pure red or not? What is being prohibited in this? We have another narration which is authentic, where the Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited Ali radiallahu anhu from wearing a saffron dyed clothes. He also sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the authentic hadith prohibited the muhrim, the one who is in ihram, from wearing saffron dyed ihrams. There's an ijma' upon that, by the way. There is no difference amongst the scholars that it is not permissible to wear saffron colored ihram. And yet we have other hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, Abdullah ibn Umar himself, he came to the Prophet ﷺ whilst he was wearing saffron and mu'asfar, and he was not prohibited from wearing it. He also, Abdullah ibn Umar, used to dye things saffron colored, and he said the Prophet ﷺ used to love dyeing with saffron. So what we have here is one of the famous issues in fiqh. Okay? And that's why there's been a scholarly difference over this from the beginning until the end. From the companions, amongst the tabi'een, amongst the fuqaha, they all differed on this issue. We have hadith which establish the fact that the Prophet ﷺ forbade it, and at the same time we have the Prophet ﷺ wearing it or allowing it as well. So there's so many discussions that need to be had here. I'm just going to stick to this, alright? Go along Shaykh Uthaymeen's path first, and then I'm going to give you my own opinion. Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, the Prophet ﷺ was wearing something hamra, which is far more stronger than mu'asfar. So how can he ﷺ prohibit something which is lighter and say that this is from libas al-kuffar and then wear the extreme version himself ﷺ? There are three responses, Shaykh Uthaymeen says. The first one is that only the pure red is the red of the kuffar. Only pure red, complete pure red, is that which is from the libas of the kuffar. فلباس الكفار هو المعصفر والمعصفر يميل إلى الحمرة ولكن ليس خالصا. Okay? والحلة الحمراء التي كان الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يلبسها كانت حمراء خالصة وهذا الجواب فيه نظر لأن الأحمر خالص أشد من المعصفر. He said that that doesn't make sense, because the Prophet the idea would then go that the Prophet ﷺ was wearing a red a garment which was a different type of red to the mu'asfar. The mu'asfar is the clothes of the non-Muslims, and his version wasn't. He goes, that doesn't make sense. He goes, the second response is that this is an action. أن هذا فعل والفعل لا يعارض القول. Okay? لاحتمال الخصوصية. This is important. We discussed this before as well, a couple of years ago. When there's an action of the Prophet ﷺ and there's a statement of the Prophet ﷺ, which one gets precedent? Okay? So there's a discussion first of all there. One thing that we will accept is that if there is a statement and action, the one thing you can always argue with the action is that this is specific to the Prophet ﷺ. So he will warn against something which makes it haram for everyone, but then if he does it himself, then you know that that is something which is permissible. But permissible for who? Well, it can't be permissible for everyone if he's prohibited it, so it must be permissible for him sallallahu alaihi wasallam alone. Now, what Shaykh Uthaymeen says is something very important. He says that this principle, this kind of way, is you only think like that when it's not possible to reconcile. When you can't reconcile between evidences, it's only then that you start to say, right, this was general and this was specific, because to claim something to be specific to the Prophet ﷺ is a massive legal statement that requires heaps of evidence. You've got to be really, really sure, because on one hand, you could then end up doing something which is completely permissible, or vice versa, etc. And he goes, I don't think that this is permissible here to make this position, to say this was specific to the Prophet ﷺ, because reconciliation is possible, and now he's going to reconcile. He goes that the reconciliation is the third response, and that is that the Prophet ﷺ, when he wore this hulla, it was never red, it was red striped. And what is impermissible is to have a complete coloring. So either entirely saffron or entirely red without any break, meaning the whole thing comes across as exactly like that. And that is what Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, that was his position. His opinion was that the Prophet ﷺ never wore that something which was red. He gives an example, Shaykh Uthaymeen gives an example. The shimagh, okay, or the shimagha, you know, that tea cloth, you know, that the Saudis wear, okay? When you see that, what do you call it? What color is it? Red. Is it red though? It's red and white, isn't it? There's probably more white on that than red. Okay? But the red is what comes across, and that's what you call it. You call it a red one, or you call it a black one. And when we look at the black one, there's probably more white on that one as well, yeah? So we just call it the Saudi one, and we call it the Palestinian one, صح? Yep. So this is exactly what Shaykh Uthaymeen is saying, and that's what Ibn al-Qayyim said before, that the Prophet ﷺ wearing a hullat al-hamra, yani he's wearing a red cloak, it was not pure red, it was something which had lines in it, and so on and so forth, okay? And Shaykh Uthaymeen, therefore, he said that if there is, so Shaykh Uthaymeen's position, okay, let me conclude so that you know at least the Hanbali position, Shaykh Uthaymeen's position. The Hanbali position is that to wear red or saffron or safflower clothes, then this is disliked. It is disliked. It's not haram, it's disliked. Shaykh Uthaymeen says it is haram to wear these colors. Alright? But he himself said that these colors means this purely that color. So to wear purely yellow, or to wear purely orange, or to wear purely red, then this is something impermissible. However, if there is something going on which changes the color, then that is permissible. Okay? So, I will just answer one question, because we'll just go with Shaykh Uthaymeen's position for a minute. If Shaykh Uthaymeen's position is as it is, which is that red is impermissible, so Bobby J's favorite top, okay, which is sad. Huh?
He's not wearing it today.
He's not wearing it today. Honest to God, I can't believe Yani that he caught us out and didn't wear it today. I wish that he had worn it. So the thing is that Bobby J has this Yani mashallah, this Adidas top that he loves, that all of Manchester recognizes, because I think that's what they see every time that he goes in. They go into the shop. But it has a very prominent white stripe that goes all the way down the arm, and then another one there, and a white logo.
Probably it's getting washed away now.
The lines are getting washed away. Oh my days, it's becoming more red. So it's a real question now. Okay, if I've said to you now, and in the words of Shaykh Uthaymeen, look what he says. He goes that this hulla that the Prophet ﷺ wore, it was not pure red. ليست خالصة. خالصة, okay, I don't want to put words in his mouth, because actually even I don't know what Shaykh Uthaymeen wants to say, because he's guessing also what Ibn al-Qayyim is trying to say, because Ibn al-Qayyim was the first one who said khalisa. What does that mean? Completely? Because that's what we say, khalis. Yeah? When you say khalis, do you mean complete or do you mean pure? There's two possibilities. Does it make sense? If I say that I want it, I'm just trying to think of a sentence where you could use khalis as complete.
Does the hadith mention, Shaykh, about Rasulullah?
No. The hadith doesn't mention anything about this hulla. Doesn't mention anything about the hulla. This is Ibn al-Qayyim's opinion only. Yeah, that this hulla, when you look at it in Yemen, it doesn't come as it comes with stripes. So if you go with stripes, okay, even if you use Ibn al-Qayyim's explanation that a striped one is permissible, okay, that doesn't help us, because here we don't know whether the alternate stripe is a white or whether the alternate stripe is another shade of red. If it was an alternative shade of red, then khalis here means pure, so it's not pure red because there's two different shades. That's possible. Or we mean that there's something completely different which is mixed in, either color or design, which is reducing the impact of the red. I have to say that my heart goes towards that. Okay? That in my understanding of what they're trying to say. Because when you say khalis, in the Arabic language, khalis is more closer to pure than it is to complete. Do you know what I'm trying to say? The word khalis is more closer linguistically to pure, like completely red, than as opposed to completely, yeah?
I think it depends, because if it's clothing, then no.
Okay.
If it's food.
Okay, good. Give some examples.
Yeah. For asr, for example, honey.
Yep.
Say, هذا عسل خالص.
Okay. Yeah, so this is pure honey, khalis, yep.
ولكن في الثياب, you say like, this is, you can't say khalis in terms of the color. But I mean, I would say like, even if we are trying to use this analogy of the color khalis or not, why don't we just say, okay, what about Rasulullah when he wore? It was before he prohibited. So he did the action and then the command came.
Oh no. That's a side point. We can explain the hadith of in different ways. Don't worry about that. Let's just focus on Ibn al-Qayyim's classification of if his argument has weight that this thing was striped. What does that mean? Does that mean therefore like can I wear, if this was all red, but there's just a line there which is white? Okay, is that permissible or not?
Oh, even the badge, for example, that's a perfect example. Yeah.
A bag.
No, the badge.
Yeah.
That, so you've got everything that's red.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had to quickly check down and what's going on. I haven't seen this badge for a long time. I don't know what it says even.
What you're wearing is black, isn't it? Even though there's a logo which has two different colours.
Yep.
In essence, that would be classed
Yeah, you'd be nuts to call this yani anything but black.
Even if
Even if it had white lines, you'd still call it black. Just like we said the shimagh. The shimagh, as we said, you call it red. Even though the white is actually more, I mean, by 1% or something, because the edge, they don't do red, okay?
You sort of call it checkered. You wouldn't call it white or red. You call it checkered.
Yeah, but we're not talking about in terms of design. We're talking about in terms of color.
Sheikh,
Yeah,
with
but
Shimagh
the
itself.
colour is just to differentiate.
I'm saying we're not talking about design. I'm saying if you're asked to,
You wouldn't say red or you wouldn't say white. You would say
you're such a packy, aren't you? If I pick up two, which the black one and a red one that are checkered, you can say I love the checkered one, please.
No, but his point is correct on the basis
Then it
that
cuss me.
if you saw two checkered items, then
That's why I said to you 3 times. I'm not talking in terms of design. I'm talking in terms of color.
but the colour only comes into it because the design is the same.
Uh huh.
So because
Yeah, so I'm saying let's
design
define something in terms of color. Leave design. Let's say that we've got, equal designs, but we've got different color matches. Yeah? You are going to call something by its dominant color. Simple as that. So now we've got to ask ourselves, if we do that as humans, all right, we call something by its dominant color, is the dominant color dominant because it has large patches of that color? Or is it like, for example, in a checkered design, it's so close to one another even though it's mixed up? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Now, the reason I went through the exercise is to show you that whatever the position of Ibn al-Qayyim and his interpretation is, it is still a matter of doubt. Yes?
This is the color itself or the reason behind the color.
Well, that also needs to be discussed.
Because in the past maybe yellow and red is the color for this.
Absolutely.
Maybe
We-
blue and green.
Correct, and we'll discuss that in my summary of this. Yeah,
Sheikh, with the Shimagh is a good example. I mean, if we have a different colors of the red,
yep,
even though it's got white and red is dominant color there,
Yep.
you wouldn't call that khalis, would you?
correct. That's what I'm trying to say. You would not say that this is khalis, but it doesn't help us because we don't know. We're not calling it khalis because the red is not dominant, or because the red is not continuous, or you get what I'm trying to say. Like I said, I think that this opinion throws up more problems than it solves them. Okay? And therefore it is no surprise, as I wrote, that amongst the scholars that considered it to be haram, like Sheikh Uthaymeen said, is Ibn al-Qayyim, okay, to wear red, pure red, I'm talking about, okay, Imam al-Shawkani and the Zahiriyya, the literalists' madhab. As for the people who said it's makruh, then it's the Hanbali school, the Hanafi school, and the Maliki school. As for the scholars who allowed it completely without any problem, it's the Shafi'is. Okay? So the Shafi'i school, they allowed the wearing of saffron and red colored clothes without any issue, without any problem. Now,
So the real is the ijtihad.
huh?
Their own ijtihad on that.
You'll see now. Some of the people, they said, I want you to now just think about all of the discussions. First of all, Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, he in Fath al-Bari, when I looked in Fath al-Bari, gave 8 different opinions on this issue of wearing these clothes. Okay? 8 different opinions. Just so that you can just expand your horizons. Some of them said, hold on, Ibn Umar, the hadith of Ibn Umar makes it very, very clear that saffron is prohibited in ihram, which indicates that
outside.
it is permissible outside. That adds to the masala. Okay?
Sheikh is not going to give the color, ihram, color for the ihram.
That's right, color for the ihram we're talking about.
Sheikh, not necessarily.
You know that it is, we'll come to that in its right time, but it is permissible to have a colored ihram. We are just obviously, we look at white and so on, okay, and there's no doubt that it is recommended, but it is permissible to have a different color ihram if there's a need. However, for a saffron colored one, there would not be permissible. That's the point. There's a consensus on that. Now the idea is that when saffron is not allowed in ihram, then that's an indication it is allowed outside. Like when we talked about makeup, right? We said that kuhl, for example, the Prophet ﷺ forbade the women who are in their iddah after the deaths of their husbands to wear kuhl, right? Antimony, eyeliner effectively, which indicates what? Indicates that it is a sign of beautification and it is permissible outside of mourning and so on and so forth. You get what I'm trying to say? So that's one. Another thing which is I think interesting, in the hadith of Mughira, in the hadith of wudu, the hadith where the Prophet, where Mughira ibn Shu'bah brought the water for the Prophet ﷺ to make wudu in Bukhari, he said that the Prophet ﷺ was wearing because Mughira described what the Prophet ﷺ was wearing, a Roman shawl, okay, so a cloth, yani that was a particular garment that was from Rome, and he also said in another narration that he was wearing a qibtiyya. Now the qibtiyya is a Coptic garment from Egypt, meaning it is linked to and Coptics were never anything other than Christians. Okay, so there was a garment which was not religiously connected to them, but from that region and the people. And we know the Prophet ﷺ wore the khuffayn. And the khuffayn is not an Arab garment, by the way. Leather socks were not, I don't know which culture it is, but it was certainly not Arab. Okay, and then he used to wear them because obviously they're strong and they're warm, etc. And then out of ease you're allowed to wipe on them. That's why we allow the wiping on socks, because we said it's not about the actual garment itself, it's about the concession and about making easy. That's why we allow wiping on shoes, etc., etc. Okay, so what do we know? Just to add into the spice, the Prophet ﷺ has been seen wearing the color that he's prohibiting. The Prophet ﷺ has been seen wearing the clothes of non-Muslims that he said, don't wear this, these are the clothes of the non-Muslims. The Prophet ﷺ has allowed people to be wearing literally a certain color because he prohibited them from them in ihram, which means he allows it to them in other times. So we have a lot of points here. Also, Ibn Hajar, when he discussed this, and he discussed this on the issue of wearing red, he said that it is allowed at home and when you're working, but it's never allowed for zina. And this is the position of Imam Malik as well. Okay, so that when it comes for wearing it outside and wearing it to look good in, red is not allowed for the male. But for being at home or wearing it as part of a uniform, to get dirty and there's like a lack of respect being shown towards it, then it's not being rated, etc. Then it's something which is what? It is permissible at that time. I want to put to you that in my summary of this, that my position, and certainly the class position, is that there is no color which is prohibited absolutely for the male and the female. Okay? There is no color which is prohibited for the male or the female. Likewise, there is no absolute obligatory color which a person must wear at certain times either. There is a recommendation for males to wear white clothing. The Prophet ﷺ said, wear the white clothes and use them to shroud your dead. So that's something which is recommended. However, when it comes to halal and haram, I do not believe that there is a haram color and there is a halal color for neither women or men. So then you will say, what about all these evidences and all these hadith? How do we come to deal with that? Let's talk about women first. Okay? None of these hadith refer to women. None of these hadith refer to women. So what is the color of a woman? What is the color that she should be expressing outside in her clothes, or what shouldn't she be expressing? Because you know that when it comes to practicing Muslim women, it seems like our color is black. Yes, especially of course because of the Gulf countries, most hijabs, jilbabs, etc., etc. I want you to know that this issue comes back down to culture, all right? And it comes down to time. It comes down to era. It comes down to the people themselves. The idea for a woman when she is wearing her clothes in normative scenarios in public is that she does not draw attention to herself. We've discussed this before. It's this ridiculous kind of idea that a woman would wear hijab but then be using the hijab to draw attention to herself. Yep. So, you know, a woman be wearing a hijab and she decides to, you know, tinge it neon colored, for example. Yeah? Or she puts, I don't know, electric kind of LED lights in it that it flashes or something like that. Something from, out of, what's it called? Yeah, what's, thingy, yeah, I can't believe I've forgotten the
Lightning.
no man, I can't believe I've forgotten the film, yeah. The film of my youth.
The Running Man.
No man. The Tron. Tron. Something out of Tron. I can imagine, yeah, and that's what I think of anyway, Tron. Anyway, back to the point. So a woman's not meant to bring attention to herself, alright? And attention to herself means different things at different times. So that's why in Saudi to go around wearing a white abaya and a white niqab, whatever, that would be just ridiculous. And you would understand a scholar saying that that's something which is impermissible, even though, of course, it's crazy to say wearing white is impermissible. However, when all the women are outside and she wears white, every single person's going to be like, what the heck, you're looking at this woman. Do you understand? It just so, this is not about being sexist towards women or not, it's just that she's going to stick out. The truth of the matter is that there might have been a time where men would have stuck out. Okay? Because in Saudi, right, in certain cities, if you wear black, you would stick out. Yeah, like in Riyadh or like in Najd or whatever, where every single person is wearing white. And so that would be then not a wise decision. However, you will see in the Haramain, Mecca and Medina, that none of the scholars apply their own cultural values to male or females, especially females, because there's so many women that come from outside with their normal clothes that they're not going to be wearing black. They're wearing their own kind of different colors, etc., etc. Now, I want you to know that in this country, again, that decision needs to be made by women themselves. They will know what are the colors or what are the style of the colors that stick out. All right? Now, you got to understand that there are obvious exceptions to this rule. A woman wearing a hijab and niqab is going to stick out regardless. You know what I'm trying to say? This is not called sticking out. That's a religious requirement. Anything which is a religious requirement, it doesn't matter that you stick out or not, because then otherwise people will say, well, the men all stick out, then they should also shave their beards because the majority are non-bearded. Okay? We'll say that when it comes to a religious requirement, it doesn't matter. Okay? When it comes to a religious reality, it doesn't matter. So for example, when it comes to beards, there might become a time where the beard becomes dominant. Yeah, absolutely dominant kind of feature. That will not change the ruling of the beard in any way. Likewise, if the Muslims of now were our number 200 years ago, then all the women were pretty much covered. Yeah, the idea was that in the public that was seen as a respectful way. I'm saying to you that come in 100 years' time, let's just say that something happens in the atmosphere and it's not possible to expose their hair outside. Imagine, okay? And so therefore every single woman wears a headscarf when they go outside. That will not increase or decrease the obligation of the hijab one little bit. So the point I'm trying to make is that when it comes to understanding this ruling, okay, when it comes to understanding this ruling of not sticking out, it does not include religious obligations. You have to stick out. This has to stick out. But if you are in an area where your color is bringing undue attention or the way you're wearing it, then that's something which should be avoided. So I want you to know that there is no prohibited color as long as you do not bring attention to yourself. This is my personal opinion. Point 1. Point 2. The color itself must not represent something which is impermissible. So for women, there is no color that represents men, but there are shapes that represent men. Okay? So for example, trousers or a suit of some sort. Okay? I don't mean a female suit because that's a recognized reality. There's a different cut on a woman's suit to like a male suit. Okay? It's impermissible for a woman to be wearing that clothes which is specific for a man. And likewise, and obviously for vice versa as well. However, with color, there is an issue. There are certain colors that if a male was to wear them, they look very feminine. And even that exists in our culture here. Okay? And now, I don't have the confidence because, I generally stick to one color. Yep. Although in the last few weeks I've made a concerted effort to change that perception. Okay. However, I don't know what those colors are, but I do believe that red is seen as a feminine color. Okay. I think that we have to be aware that there are different forms of red. There are some scholars, by the way, that said the reason that red was prohibited, just to show you the extent that how many scholars are trying to explain what's going on. Some of them, they said that the reason that red is prohibited is because it resembles silk. Meaning that people never used to wear or use black silk or white silk. That when silk was there, it was always in one of these funky colors. So some of them said that actually, that's why, by the way, one of the reasons why the scholars mention color in the chapter of the silk. Because they said that the prohibition is linked to the fact that when people used to see it from not very close up, but any kind of distance, if they saw something red, they would immediately think it's silk, and therefore your perception is being changed, etc., etc. So a color that is indicating a feminine reality exclusively, that is also something which is impermissible. A color which is representing a religious order, this is impermissible. Now, this is the dominant position of how to explain the Prophet ﷺ statement that this is from the clothes of the kuffar. It seems to be clear that saffron was being worn by some kind of mushrikeen or some kind of people at that time. Whether we understand that or not, we certainly understand it today. With the Hare Krishna lot, okay, it is absolutely a mark of their existence. Like no one wears saffron. No one wears it, okay? And so therefore, I think that we can say that a person who wears a purely saffron kind of garment, they are at least risking the prohibition. Because the Hare Krishna lot, they are identified by that color. Yani, someone might turn around and say, okay, I'm going to wear a jacket, okay, which is saffron colored. And they don't wear jackets, they wear that, sari, okay? And anyone who sees me wearing my jacket will never ever think of the sari. So I say I agree, but you're taking a risk. Because the color might be indicating something specific, not just the style of the clothing. So I just want you to know that, that you just need to be aware of that point. Okay? So I want to summarize this chapter, that I believe that every hadith of the Prophet ﷺ which prohibited these colors was not because of the color itself, but because of what the color itself indicated. Another example of not tahrim li dhatihi, but tahrim li ghayrihi and wasa'il. For example, being considered to be from the non-Muslims or copying non-Muslims or becoming too effeminate or copying women. These are the real reasons why these colors are prohibited, not because of color itself. There is no such thing as an Islamic color or not color. There are certain colors which are positive. The Prophet yes, I will say that there's a discussion around green. Okay, right? The Brillos did get that one right. Okay, yeah. There is and there should be a little bit of love for green. Some of the ulama said that because it is the clothes and the color of Jannah, all right, or the clothes in Jannah and the dressings of Jannah, and they said that's something that indicates that in this life then can be used as well. There are some people who also used to wear it, and I want you to know that there was a real hatred of red. A real hatred of red back then. Many of the companions and tabi'een have got many statements against red. Okay? So I'm saying to you, yellow actually is not even in the game, like a proper yellow. But we've, in our translations, like me and having a yellow moment, alright? Golden yellow. Okay, blonde, alright? Saying yellow, but the truth is that it's not linked to yellow per se. It's actually linked more to red. I'll put it to you. Is red a color that has lost any of that today? What do you think? How do people perceive red today? In your culture, how is red perceived?
I can't remember what as we mentioned the short way, how the maybe they are weak, but I can't remember.
What about burgundy?
I don't even know what color burgundy is.
Pink. No, deep red.
I always saw these kind of colors, as airwear colors. not real colours, just anyway, and just kalam fadi. It's not proper colour, is it?
That colour there of the
That is that burgundy?
yeah.
That's maroon, bro.
Burgundy and maroon is very strong.
You know, with the,
Yeah, absolutely. The it is unclear. Of course, it is. What do you think? What kind of clarity was you expecting when the Prophet ﷺ prohibits a color and then wears it? You get what I'm trying to say? Yani, what I mean is that this issue has always been unclear.
But we've gone from makruh to haram.
Yeah.
And now you're saying everything's on the table, but if it makes you effeminate in colour.
We said that everything is allowed unless it represents something which is impermissible or creates the impression of impermissibility.
That makes it all subjective. So
Absolutely, I do believe.
pink shirts,
Yeah.
red shirts.
Absolutely.
But it's
That is.
What is that?
I believe that the person has to be responsible enough to be able to make that call.
So it is subjective.
And now I think pink shirts, for example, they are not. You see, this is a good example. Blue for baby boy, pink for baby girl. However, pink has way lost its feminine reality when it comes to a shirt. Men have been wearing pink shirts for decades with zero feminine implication. You get what I'm trying to say? So that's a point. Who's going to now go and prohibit pink? You get what I'm trying to say? Go to Malaysia and prohibit blues and greens and reds. Well, the people have a heart attack over there. They wear the most funkiest colours possible. Nigerians. Oh my God. You see those guys, they're nuts, Yara. They knock out some crazy colours.
I was talking about complete
Right?
nice-
Now in Pakistan, a guy walking down the street in, red, is going to get beats. Isn't he? And the Arabs as well, they don't like that.
Wedding,
Huh?
if there's a wedding, it's all go.
No, wait. Only Bobby ever wore that sherwani that I saw that was red. Yeah.
I got a picture from the
And we got pictures as well to show it, yeah. Yeah, only he wears
That's my
red.
profile when he calls That's right.
You saved it, yeah?
On his thing, man.
Astaghfirullah, that's haram, that is. That's so bad, man. But I mean, look, the point is that absolutely I believe that this is a subjective call. Absolutely. I completely understand. Oh, now listen, wait a minute, right? Does that mean that I wear red without inhibition? No. What I believe is one thing, and what I would practice is something else. As students of knowledge, as people of wara, as people of taqwa, I would say just avoid things of doubt. I wouldn't go near saffron. Okay? And I don't want to come off as I'm some religious mashallah. I can't stand the color saffron, but I don't want to say that it's because of religion that I'm not going to buy that saffron jacket. Yeah? I don't like the color anyway. Red, I don't think that I would have anything, but red is not in this country. Red is not seen in that way. I love Bobby's jacket.
I think it's a neutral colour. No, genuinely, I do think it's a neutral colour. Red.
In which world?
Yeah, bro.
That's good to give you a red jacket.
No,
man.
yeah.
Yeah, he keeps buying it again. Every time it gets messed up, he buys another one, the same
What
one.
about orange?
Orange.
Like a reddish orange.
I don't know. We'll ask the gatekeepers, okay? Red, for a man to wear red. No, huh? Besti, yeah? It's besti. Okay, what about man wearing orange?
No.
Okay, what about man wearing yellow?
Pink.
What about man wearing pink?
No.
Okay, what about wearing green?
That's alright.
Wearing green, huh? He's defending his green, huh? So no pink. What about pink shirt? Not pink shalwar kameez. So pink shirt's okay,
So what
but
pink is that?
but pink shalwar kameez is not okay. You see, there's nothing I've heard there which I don't disagree with. I agree with that. I can't ever imagine a pink shalwar kameez. It'd be a disaster. But except in Malaysia, for example, in Malaysia, pink shalwar kameez, completely no problem, isn't it? I know because half the class wearing them, that's why. But A pink shirt, he said, no problem. I agree. When you see a pink shirt, you don't think that's a problem. So that goes to show you, now look at a person who's going to prohibit a color. I think there's a dhulm involved in that. When you prohibit a color outright, when you know that it is linked to culture so much.
But it is so subjective.
Absolutely, it's subjective.
Yeah, for example, you know, the people of the elder generation will have an opinion.
Absolutely.
The younger generation will have
Absolutely, and that's
you know.
down to culture. That's down to culture. That is the point. I think it is linked to culture.
So what's the legal ruling that you apply? If it is effeminate and subjectively we agree,
Look at Umar Akman here, look.
Yeah.
is it makruh or haram?
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar,
Allahu Akbar, Allah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
So, look, just to pick up on a few things online, and then just to conclude the discussion. Okay, Awal said that Nigerians aren't so bad. He's Nigerian, by the way. Actually, when I think about it, they aren't so bad. They do use a lot more darker colors, don't they? In their kind of shiny, kind of silky stuff. It's a lot more normal. Anyway, look, you are either going to take an approach to this, which is the one of safety and ihtiyat. And if you're going to take the safety position, then you will avoid these colors. You will avoid these colors. Simple as that. If you want to be absolutely upon the position of Shaykh Uthaymeen, he considers all forms of red in any kind of its versions to be impermissible, okay? As long as it's pure. Now, pure here could mean either entirely or whatever. This is open up for discussion. I personally cannot interpret these hadith in any other way. I cannot see interpreting it in terms of stripes and this and that, whatever. However, I can very clearly see them being interpreted how we understand generally clothing. Clothing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made permissible. There's no such thing as bad clothing or bad colors. It's what people do with it. It's people's intentions behind it. It's like similar to discussion on pictures as well. When we intend disrespect to something, and when we have ta'zeem of something, it's not just me who differentiated, but the scholars did. They said that an eagle on the floor and walking on it is not the same as putting a portrait up of an eagle or a picture. You get what I'm trying to say? And that's why I said this is permissible. All right. The use of pictures are permissible, not displayed, obviously. And likewise, colors. Likewise, what is your intention behind the wearing of that color? If it is to express your feminine side, or you're trying to be something, then you've just got to fear Allah and move away from that. if that clothing has taken on a connotation in your society, even though you don't want to, but it has taken on a connotation of a religious reality, then you need to avoid that. Okay? So as I said, a saffron based type of sari or whatever, you'd run a mile from that. You'd run a mile. You wouldn't risk that. Okay? But at the same time, I'm not going to say that having a saffron, colored shoes or trousers or whatever is impermissible. And Tahani said that, what about then a woman wearing a white abaya in Saudi, for example? Why should it be a problem that she sticks out? Surely if she's acting seductive or acting in an unbecoming way, that should be the problem. We say that that's impermissible behavior, to act in a way of seductive and whatever. That's completely haram. As for the color, we said that color in of itself is not haram. It's what it leads to. So if color is what's bringing people attention to you, and then people are focusing more on you, and you are participating in that, and you are knowingly involved in that, that becomes a problem. That's why bringing attention to yourself, is a problem. But then those allowing these feminine colors, which would be promoting the transgender culture, is a point that's being made. I say that only if it's seen as a feminine color. Okay, do you get what I'm trying to say? Like red. If we use red as the typical feminine color, I think like an Adidas red jacket, the one that Bob's has, I don't think that promotes anything feminine. There's nothing feminine about it, like whatsoever. You get what I'm trying to say? So I just think that in response to Zaf's question, or Zaf's point, that what you've done is made it more complicated, you've never given it a ruling or not. Actually, I think I made it more accurate. Okay? In my own world, in my own dimension. Yeah? I think that it's become more accurate, because what I haven't done is prohibit something which has clearly got nothing to do with being prohibited. I don't want to prohibit a red jacket when red was never ever prohibited. The Prophet ﷺ wore red. That's my response. I don't want to make a saffron halal, okay, when the Prophet ﷺ himself wore it, and I make it halal, and a person wears it in the form of a sari, which is copying Hare Krishna, and he says that I don't look like Hare Krishna, I have a beard and I'm wearing a hat, but I like wearing saris, and I like wearing saffron saris. It would be ridiculous. We'd say you look like one of those, you're promoting one of those people, and it's impermissible for you to wear those clothes.
Is there any colour that you would say is haram?
Outright? I don't think so. I don't think.
Any colour wrong? Red?
No. I think there has to be an application of wearing it in some kind of way. There has to be some kind of intention behind it. There's got to be, there has to be linked to the form of dress as well. Yes, I believe that to avoid red and yellow and orange completely will be the safest position across the board. But you asking me a question, is there such thing as a haram color? I say no. I say that every hadith that the Prophet ﷺ prohibited a color, it was because he gave an illah with it. He gave some indication, about, something to do with that. Okay. Also, I'll just say just one other thing as well. It could be argued, just to really kind of confuse you all right? It could be argued that when the Prophet ﷺ prohibited the muza'afar and the mu'asfar, what he was actually prohibiting is that which is muza'afar and mu'asfar, not the color, but that which is dyed with saffron and dyed with carmethrin or whatever it's called. What's it called? Yeah, carthamine. The actual natural dye itself. Today, it's all artificial dyes. Maybe it's something to do with the substance itself. Maybe it's something to do with the smell. Maybe it's something to do with the cost. I think they use acyline or asinine or whatever, I don't know. Today, an artificial dye now most of the time when it comes to colors. So who's to know? So that's my position. That's my position with men and women. I believe that no color in of itself is prohibited. I think that what is prohibited is when a person wears it and it is in that society well known to be feminine, and a person says, I'm still going to wear it, then that's haram. I believe that you wearing a color that's associated with a religion or an order or a cult or whatever, and it's an identity for that people in a religious sense, okay, then that's haram. Identity is not a problem. Right? If you go and work for, Emirates Airline, okay, and they all want all of their people to wear brown, okay, and you say it's haram to be part of a cult. I mean, you're part of their uniform. You're identifying with them. It's not a religion. It's a rules and procedure and so on and so forth. So conforming to a uniform is not impermissible. It's what that cult indicates. This is very important that people understand. And it's when people don't understand these things is that everything becomes haram. What you wear haram, the color haram, this, that. So there's nothing wrong intrinsically with yellow. There's nothing wrong intrinsically with red. Yes, in our cultures, for a male, especially in those kind of the South Asian kind of communities, to be wearing red and yellow, those kind of clothes, that's a shocker. You'd avoid that because you're an air of doubt and so on. But yeah. Yes, go on. Last one, 2 questions.
Yeah, Sheikh, you mentioned about the colors. For example, I think in the question is only red, orange, and yellow in this discussion what we had.
Yep.
So if there's these colors, then what is the volume? What are you talking about, head to toe, like from shoulder to
Enough that you see that question in itself proves that it can't be the color. Because where is a hadith that says the color itself is the problem? There is nothing that says. The Prophet ﷺ never said, for example, that red is the color of shaitan. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Use that for the shayateen.
Correct. Yeah, but there's no evidence to say that you can't have a red. About saying you can't have a red dot. Yeah, and then I realized obviously that would be a major problem. Yeah, but let's say a red line going down your white shirt. What, your shirt's becoming permissible because it has a red line? No. There's no evidence for that. Allah Alam. Yeah. Okay, let's call it a day, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanakallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Yeah, they can do salah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah.
لا إله إلا الله. استووا. أقيموا صفوفكم واعتدلوا. استووا. Please. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. واكتب لنا في هذه الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة إنا هدنا إليك قال عذابي أصيب به من أشاء ورحمتي وسعت كل شيء فسأكتبها للذين يتقون ويؤتون الزكاة والذين هم بآياتنا يؤمنون الذين يتبعون الرسول النبي الأمي الذي يجدونه مكتوبا عندهم في التوراة والإنجيل يأمرهم بالمعروف وينهاهم عن المنكر ويحل لهم الطيبات ويحل لهم الطيبات ويحرم عليهم الخبائث ويضع عنهم إصرهم والأغلال التي كانت عليهم فالذين آمنوا به وعزروه ونصروه واتبعوا النور الذي أنزل معه أولئك هم المفلحون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل يا أيها الناس إني رسول الله إليكم جميعا الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض لا إله إلا هو يحيي ويميت فآمنوا بالله ورسوله النبي الأمي الذي يؤمن بالله وكلماته واتبعوه لعلكم تهتدون. ومن قوم موسى أمة يهدون بالحق وبه يعدلون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. سمع الله لمن حمده. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.